Hello, everybody, and welcome to Local Talk Radio. I am your host, Adrian Alfaro, here today with Angie and CJ. You guys want to say hi, guys?
Hey, how you doing?
All
Hello,
right.
everyone.
They are some absolutely amazing artists making art inspired by indigenous peoples. So we're going to be talking about that here in a minute, but first we're going to start with Can't Fight This Feeling by REO Speedwagon. Enjoy, you guys. All right, welcome back. We're here with Angie and CJ on Local Talk Radio. I wanted to thank you guys first off for being on the show today with me, guys, and wanted to ask you guys what drew you guys into creating native-inspired art, and how has it pushed you in your art?
So, all right. I guess I'll go first. I guess I've always been an artist. It was the thing that came most natural to me. I guess only second to like learning history, my history specifically. Just at a very young age, I found myself questioning everything. So like no flat answer would really suffice. So I needed to know the whys and hows about everything, and that trend stayed with me, even now. But being young, being born into a primarily Hispanic, primarily Catholic culture, with a racing mind that I had, I wasn't satisfied with accepting these things that just wouldn't make sense to me, right? So that other people just never seemed to question. I couldn't live like that. So I guess that's really when I was younger is when I began my journey of like reevaluating my world, my identity. In doing so, I rediscovered really who I was. Reconnecting with like what I now know as my indigenous roots. But that's what I feel most comfortable in. What I know is like true and real, and that's why I choose to represent these things at the forefront of my art. And it's been successful for me thus far. So I intend to continue with that.
Awesome,
Um,
thank you.
yeah. Also, thank you for having us. As for me, same thing. I've always been an artist growing up, but I feel like I took more of the STEM route because my family, that's what they wanted. But during the pandemic was when I really started reevaluating everything as well. I had always had these beliefs too, like the coming from my indigenous background, that like the earth and just always wanting to connect and only being able to express that through art, but I had never pursued it. But then, like, the pandemic came, I had more time, and I started reflecting a lot more, finding new ways to express myself. And it was really through this art that I felt it was the most genuine and a way I could honor that. It's just a way of, again, finding myself and learning the stories from the land as well. And everything, like, to me, is just a way of creating stories and learning, giving. And I think that's what really pushes me as an artist. And it motivates me to create my own story, of my people's, and it's an honor to be able to do that.
Yeah. And were you raised close to your indigenous roots, or were you raised like Catholic, like something like CJ had said?
Yeah, same Hispanic, Catholic,
Yeah.
but my grandparents, like, they had such indigenous beliefs. Like, they also, like, loved the land, they lived off the land, and they had all these beliefs, but it was one of those things where I was confused too, because I believed, like, in the land, like, I loved the land so much, but I didn't have terms for it. I didn't have, like, a reasoning as to why I saw it like that. Despite, like, seeing my family sometimes subdue the land, but I had these beliefs where, like, I had to take care of the land, live with the land, and seeing my grandparents do it. So it was really confusing seeing the assimilation, but then also, like, traditional forms of thinking growing up. And it was very confusing, but it was during the pandemic that I really started to, like, do more research on that. And yeah, so it was like a weird mixture of both.
Yeah. So you guys weren't exactly pushed hard for this as you guys were young. This is something you guys grew into as you got older and grew an appreciation for, correct?
I would say yes.
Was there ever like a moment for you guys where like it just like clicked, where you're like, damn, like this is what makes sense to me. This is what I feel connected with making your native art.
I gotta think about it a little.
Yeah. I mean, you talked about doing research during the pandemic, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think, yeah, like for me, it was always something that was present, but I just never had the term for it, and I never knew where it came from. But it was until I did that research and started, like, not shutting it out, because I feel like
Hmm.
that's a huge part. Like, they make you want to shun it, and it's like, nah, like, believe this, believe this. But once I started questioning that and doing my own research on, like, where am I really from and why do I have all these beliefs, and asking my grandparents their stories, I think that was a huge one, and it was like it makes sense, like why I believe this way, why I feel this way, why I feel disconnected from like these kind of colonized ideals and the Western stories that they gave us. And I think yeah, once I started doing research and gathering those stories of my grandparents and their parents, it clicked. It was like shit. Now I know what it is, and now I know where I come from and like where I want to go with that.
Uh, what what sort of peoples would you say you guys pull inspiration from? I know we talked a little bit about that before the show, but you know, uh, what kind of peoples were they? What kind of inspiration have they? What kind of inspiration do they produce that you find expressing itself through y'all's art?
Um, I guess specifically with like my family, my ancestry, like I do have biases towards those native groups in which I know I'm from, and so I try and represent those things as historically accurate as possible, and I think I've done that thus far, but um, as regards to like very specific tribal influences and such, I don't think I personally have that. It's more of a as because of how broad and varied my ancestry is. I can't tie myself back to one specific tribe or one specific group of people. Rather, I claim Anahuac, which is the Nahuatl term for this land, being close to water. This place, the Gulf Coast, you find people trace their ancestry back several generations, tens, 20s generations back. They end up in different countries, Europe, Asia, lots of different places. You trace my people back, we're going to end up in the same exact place. It's all this
Yeah.
divot of the Gulf Coast, and I try and represent all of the peoples of the Gulf Coast with, of course, a few biases here and there towards ones that I'm more familiar with, but that's pretty much where my influence stands with my historical ancestry.
Yes, for me, same thing. It's like it gets really complicated when you try to trace it, and the whole history of people mixing, whether it was forced or not. But my people come from Guanajuato, Mexico. All of them, like, they have been there. I asked my grandparents, and they're like, we've always been here. Like, this is our homeland. So, the way I like connect with the land is like children of the wind. I'm really connected to the wind, to the mountains, and I also consider myself very close to the Rio Grande because like I was raised here, and by default, like she cared for me and I care for her, right? And same, but in terms of like the peoples of Guanajuato, um, it was a Guamare tribe where my family um, is from, right? But through assimilation and like a lot of different things, the stories aren't, the art, the stories have kind of been lost, and they haven't been studied that much because it is a very peculiar region. And so when I do my artwork, it's so for our peoples, it was like they learned from the land. Their teachers were the land, the animals, the wind, the celestial beings. And so whenever I do artwork, it's the same thing. I try to commune with the land, with the animal spirits, and see what they have to teach me, and then I translate that into artwork, how I connect with them. And it's a lot of listening to the land and a lot of receiving and how we interact that creates the kind of artwork I do. It's not necessarily just a specific like, oh, let me like inspire from this specific tribe. It's more like the relations, that kind of action of being with the land and then getting artwork from that connection.
Okay, yeah. I like how you when you're talking about the RGV there, you referred to it as her. You gave like the RGV you made it very it's a very something to like personalize with, something to sympathize with almost even. It sounds very spiritual. I can imagine being historically accurate is like freaking impossible, right? Not okay, maybe not impossible, but a very tall task to do in this sort of art, especially because of the history of colonization, and probably so much stuff like just lost to that to those outside people coming in. Thank you guys so much. We are going to go to a quick song break here, you guys. When we get back, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the mediums that they like to work with here. But first, we're going to play "Don't Fear the Reaper" by Blue Oyster Cult. Welcome back to Local Talk Radio once again. What kind of mediums do you guys like to work with? And does the mediums you guys have chosen prove any challenges?
For me, I strive to go. I do like multimedia, if I'm being honest. But I think the ones I feel most resonated with, or that I can express myself best, is through organic materials, and yeah, just organic materials and kind of like embroidery. So I know in the picture I sent you, it's like a dried nopal, the insides of a dried nopal. So I really like um, making art out of the things that are already here. And through that, you learn different stories, and like interacting with them, you're forced to like touch them. When like, I don't know, I feel like usually people don't really, their first instinct isn't to grab something organic. It's like, oh, it's kind of dirty. Like, I'm not going to grab that. But when you really put yourself in that headspace of like, oh, let me commune with these beings, like you really get a feeling of the beauty they have, the stories they have, and through that you can create that artwork. And I also do film, and I think that's a different way of visualizing kind of these connections and using poetry in that way to get people to see it like and feel it. So I think those are the two mediums that I prefer: organic embroidery and film.
CJ, you do film too, right?
Fairly new to it, but I guess yeah, I do film with the recent project that I worked on with the film festival with Entre Mira Media Festival. Shout out to them. Thank you for that opportunity again. But it is a fairly new medium for me still. I'm still working out all the mechanics of it. I'm not familiar with the majority of the technology and the terms and such. With that film specifically, which is the only thing I really have under my belt as of yet under the film category, it was pretty much just all shot off my phone in a few days, or in a few hours really. I had a few days to work on it, but I hope I gotten the same themes and messages across to really invoke the indigenous respect that I intended behind presenting with that specific medium. But I guess in general with mediums, I'm interested in pretty much everything I can get physically into. Obviously film, photography, but also music, culinary are two big ones with me too. But I guess with the recent project with Impostecat, the merchant, I intentionally limited myself to like utilizing like indigenous storytelling methods only. And one of the main drawbacks to that approach, or I guess rather a fear of mine, that was that I had not presented the audience with as much context as modern Western stories do, and that would affect the reaction. Much of the like indigenous stories from antiquity don't give like audiences every detail of major characters in the story. Rather, there is this expectation that audiences have a prior understanding of the motives of the characters, whether it be gods, heroes, villains. If the story is not a direct quote-unquote origin story of the character, then hardly any real explanation is given for why the character does what they do. But being my film was intended to be rather experimental, I felt it was appropriate to have the audience do the legwork themselves when it came to better understanding and having a deeper appreciation for the story and its intricacies. But I guess as of yet, I don't really have any plans to make a story with that same stylization again, though.
Okay. I mean, yeah, I feel like the film festival audience is more willing to do the legwork to dissect and analyze a story than like the people going out to watch the latest Marvel movie or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And I like that you said you're trying to explore other mediums, like especially culinary. I feel like food is one of the easiest ways to connect with other cultures because it's like, dude, everybody likes to eat. You know what I mean? Try something new. So, does the culinary does that extend to like any of our like native plants here in the valley, right? Because I would imagine it would have to.
Definitely. I am huge on pushing for indigenous ingredients in the kitchen, especially for those who are indigenous of this region, especially the valley. People are so um, there's not enough good information in regards to what you should be putting inside of you, especially with this region. The nutritionists and others things with the information it's not directed towards us really. What I hear a lot of from others are Mediterranean diets and such of that with grains and other olive oils and things like that. But what are those diets designed for? You go back to your people, the people that you feed your body what it's designed to eat, and it will reward you greatly. And you're designed to eat these specific things, and I don't want to go off on a tangent with that, but it is incredibly.
Go off,
Go
King.
on, yeah.
All right. Corn, bean, squash.
Yes.
You need that. Those are things that are supposed to be. Your ancestors created those things. Those things were not found in nature. The size that they are, the quality, the benefit, the nutrients that they are. We genetically, created those things through lots and lots of hard work, and our bodies are designed to gain the nutrients from that. You look at there are so many studies proving the benefits of giving actual quality diet to individuals that help with every function, with brain function, with healing, with just overall wellness. And I feel like if we as a society, just in general, the valley at the bare minimum, pushed for that, we would see a tremendous increase in overall wellness on every aspect of the individual's lives.
So I also like delve into the culinary, and it's also like an act of reclaiming. And like they villainize so many of our foods, like especially maize. They're like, oh, don't eat too much corn, too many carbs, this and that. And it's like, no, this is like in a way ancestral knowledge that your body remembers, and it's nourishment that it needs. A lot of people from Mexico too, like we believe that we came from corn. So it's like it's part of our identity, it's part of our bodies, spirit, mind, everything. So to reclaim this is like to reclaim that balance again. And there's also so many native plants here that are so, like, they provide so much. And like, for example, granjero, there's some at my park, and when it's the season, I just like pick them and you eat them. And it's like such a gift to be able to get it from the land, and it's right there, but people don't know. So they just like let it go, or they're just like uninformed about it. But there's so many plants here that do provide, and it would be amazing to see people start to incorporate that, because it's local, it's here, it grows, it's accessible. And also like Hidalgo County is like super diabetic, like all these like yeah, and the whole I think country, right? And so like to incorporate these native foods and like make it information available, like it would be so much healthier for us and in all aspects. And it's also something I'm super passionate about, because you are what you eat, and these plants have like so much story, so much like nutrition to give. They want to provide, but like we just don't know how to interact with them, and we don't know their stories, we don't know like how to interact with them. So it's just another thing that I definitely think that a lot of people should read into and just like apply to their lives. And it's also something I'm trying to apply into my life, like nopales too. Like I'm sorry, but I'm so passionate about all the different foods we have here that can be used in so many different like ways, and it's so good for you. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, I think I mean nopal's like in Mexico people go crazy, or it's highly like coveted in Mexico for its like nutritional value. I know I've seen that. And like as far as you guys were talking about like gathering food down here, or like what is edible, like I've looked for that kind of information too, and like been frustrated at like the lack of access to information about like what around me is edible, what is it good for, what can I do with it, like what kind of nutritional value does it give me. But I think like a lot of these ideas, even though they're like foreign to a lot of people here, they sound so simple. They sound so simple, like have what grows readily here, eat the kind of food that like native people would eat, and it'll probably fix a lot of the problems that we have down here with our diabetes and all that. And that's crazy. You guys were talking earlier about different languages that you guys want to study and try and keep alive, and different research you guys had done. You guys want to talk a little bit about any of the languages and like what they mean to you, how hard it is to, if it's hard at all, to even keep these traditions going today.
So, in regards to languages, in my personal experience, I found it a lot of readily available resources for learning the more popular ones, the more the larger language groups. The two main ones being Maya and their offshoots, and Nahuatl. But the 68 other, at least recognized indigenous groups in Mexico, at the very least, have so many more variations, and just in general entirely separate language groups that are not as well documented and not as well researched. And it is difficult, being that we've lost so much information at time and through colonialism, and it is a shame. But the reality is that a lot of these things are still available to us in hidden forms. They are much harder to acquire, but with putting in that effort, I do believe that it's possible to revive these languages, especially. Or again, I am biased towards it, but with the Chichimeca languages such as the Guamare and Guachichil, the surviving language, what I believe they call a relic language, the Chichimeca Jonas people speak, which has a lot of influences from both Spanish and Nahuatl, which can be deciphered by, it is going to take a lot of work and a lot of research and a lot of funding, but I do believe that it's possible to get the information eventually.
And where do you look for this kind of information? Is it is it like readily online, or like you diving into the library here for some hidden knowledge?
So there are resources available online that have been made public, but to delve into a lot of that stuff, I would recommend. I know it's difficult, but to actually go out there and talk to the people, to be in the area, and the surviving pieces of history that we do have, like the codices. I've done extensive research on them, and there's still so many mysteries yet to uncover. But in regards to the information, like for that's easily available to people, I would argue that with modern technology, there is plenty to a lifetime that would take a lifetime to do just on a computer alone, that you can.
Awesome. Thank you very much. All right, guys. We will be right back. But before we're back, we're going to play For Whom the Bell Tolls by Metallica. All right, and welcome back to Local Talk Radio. What sort of themes that are common in Native art that you find being expressed and carried through your own work?
So, I guess with the research I have done, I found that several themes carry, but duality is one of the main ones. There's no good or bad. Rather, all things in life have this ability for both good and bad. For those who have control, pain is inevitable, but suffering is a choice. That's another very heavy theme. Just lots of them that revolve around the temporary aspects of the world, nothing being static, all things being cyclical, constantly changing and such. So, and I find that those themes aren't gendered or age specific, and I guess you could say I keep these things in mind, from day to day. So I suppose all of these themes are present in my art, or at least I attempt to make all of those at the forefront of it all.
Yeah, like he said, same thing. Those themes. For me, I like to focus a lot on movement. There's always like movement going, constant like energy exchanges, as well as cycles. I know you had mentioned that. That's another one I really like to put into my artwork as well, and connection. I think that's like the one that I focus on the most. Like regardless of what you do, everything is always connected, and like to never lose sight of that. And I think it's really important in my art to always put that like it might be a story of this specific an art piece of this specific thing, but it's always going to be connected to all other artworks and all other stories. So those are like some general themes that I like to focus on, but I also do a lot of duality, especially when I do kind of symbol print making kind of things. I delve into the themes of like duality, rebirth, death, cycles, reflections. It's just so much of like what life is, I guess, and saying those stories through, whether it be symbols, whether it be like just any artwork. Yeah, those are the things that I try to go for.
You guys talked about duality. You guys talked about death, and what was that you said? For those with power, pain is inevitable.
Pain is inevitable, but suffering is a choice.
Dang, man. Dang. Oh, that feels so deep to me. And duality reminds me of like yin and yang from Eastern culture. It's kind of interesting how these cultures from completely different sides of the planet have come to a couple of the same solutions, at least with that one theme right there. What kind of projects do you guys have coming up in the future? Anything you guys are excited about? Anything you guys are trying to talk about, express?
So I do have a film I'm working on. I actually filmed it it's here in Texas, Hueco Tanks, and it's about like reconnecting and how it kind of looks and means to be indigenous in the modern day. Like despite it looking a bit different, we're still holding the same stories and like I don't know, practicing the same thing the best we can in the situations we're put, and like we're still trying to get back to the land in whatever forms we can and showing up for that. And I also have a lot of projects that have to do with embroidery, weaving, and kind of getting to know my surroundings better through that. And I've also recently gotten into body painting. That's also something that my ancestors did a lot of. So trying to find symbols to paint my body with, and like using that as medicine too, but also as an art form and as a decoration. So those are a couple things that I've been kind of delving into, and also like the culinary, trying to reintroduce those indigenous recipes, indigenous foods back into my lifestyle.
I'd say project-wise, a few things. I intend to get back into music. Shout out to Green Star, love you, cousin. Representing San Benito always. Hopefully get some more music out there with some indigenous vibes and such. Culinary wellness is another one. So really want to push for the indigenous ingredients on the people. Like I mentioned, especially the valleys. Just really all that research is available. Studies have linked diet to benefiting every aspect of your life. But so I do hope to potentially get into possibly even a career in any of those arts. Really, culinary is an open option for me as of still yet. But that's no. I guess I do still have one project that is very, very new. Ehekayotl, The Way of the Wind. I intend to do something of a bit of a rambling autobiography about myself and my experiences, and to push for a bit of a self-promotion as an indigenous person who's rediscovered themselves, to promote that way of lifestyle, to reconnect with yourself. I'd recommend for all people throughout the entirety of everywhere, all over the world, to really reconnect with yourself, find out who you are, and just love more. And that's pretty much that.
It's beautiful. I feel like I should have asked what you guys were working on a little bit later, because I just totally remembered. I want to jump back here a moment to another question. Going back to themes you guys were talking about, especially when you said death is prevalent in like y'all's stories, I feel like that's not death isn't talked a lot about in Western stories, at least not like something to be like discussed, right? And that got me thinking about how these stories like are kind of designed to like shape like our children and like next generations and stuff like that. Do you guys see like a difference in like how these stories, like how like native peoples would like treat their children with these stories, talk to them maybe a little bit more different than you would expect out of a more Western, a more Catholic background?
So there's an amazing video that I would recommend to anyone curious about it. I believe it's called "The Day in the Life of an Aztec Midwife." I really love this one particular scene from it, where the midwife delivers the baby, and immediately there is a ritual involved, but the immediate response that that the woman gives to the child is something along the lines of "Welcome unto this horrible place of pain and suffering," and that that's unheard of in the Western world, the modern Western world, to tell a child that this place is not fun, that this place hurts. And we grew up teaching our children plenty of lies and plenty of things in something of an absurdist way of looking at it, that to make light of the negativity. And I believe personally, I feel like that's counter beneficial to the intended goal, whereas our ancestors would be very open and say the truth of the world. This isn't a fun place. Day to day there's suffering, there's pain, there's torment, and we all experience this. And when it's more obvious, more talked about, I believe that when it's more reminded, I believe people will be more readily available, or at least more easily persuaded to act out in a better light, to treat their fellow man, their neighbor, better, because we all need to be reminded that everyone experiences pain. We all live that same lifestyle, and so with that same theme of before, both of death and the idea that for those who are in control, pain is inevitable, but suffering is a choice. I believe that that is one main takeaway that we should be pushing upon society as a whole.
Yeah, and to add on to Wayak Sapkan, I really like that you mentioned the honesty part. I feel like in indigenous cultures, it's a lot about honesty. One of their principles is to always be honest. And in terms of death, the way they present it is often like in stories and getting children familiar that like, hey, death isn't a bad thing. Death is part of what it means to live. To live is to die. They're both part of the same mirror, just different sides. And so you're presented with this idea of duality. It's like there's life, there's death, but after every death, there's a life, and after every life, there's a death. So it's these cycles again. It's teaching children about these cycles, and that it's natural to go through these cycles. It's not a suffering. It is pain, but it's not suffering. It's just how you see it. It's part of life. And so they're raised with that kind of concept in mind. Life, death, they're interconnected. It's like the snake that eats itself. in constant destruction, but also in constant creation. And so I think it's just, perspective and sharing stories about not villainizing death, not villainizing bad things, not villainizing shadows. It's light, shadow, death, life. It's just that again, duality, and making sure that they know that that is what it means to live, that is inherent to coming into this world, and that it's okay, that it's accepted, and it isn't bad. Not putting that fear into them, because like in Western worlds, it's a lot of fear, like death. This is like, oh my gosh, you should fear it, and like it's a bad thing. Like no one wants to die, but in indigenous people's minds, it's like, well, I mean, at the same time, like if you live, you have to die. It's all interconnected, and in a sense, we don't truly ever die or truly ever live. Like it's just a whole cycle kind of idea that children are presented with, and oftentimes it's through storytelling. So it's very understandable to the kids, and then you create this whole culture where you're not scared of death. You understand it as part of life.
Yeah. You're just kind of like, here, it doesn't sound very individualized, if that makes sense,
Yeah.
right? Like if you think of, like in the Catholic view, you die and then you go to heaven. You have your own like heaven, whatever. It's all about you, or you die and then you're reborn as like another, or as an animal, as a person, right? It seems very individualized, versus this sounds very part of a whole. Like you're working in an entire whole system. Like you are not just, at least this is what it sounds like to me, but it's like you are not just you.
Yeah.
You are like the land you came from, and you're like to
Yeah.
return to the land, and you're the crops of tomorrow and the yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. Like a part of you will always stay here, but a part of you will always be in another place. It's like just like you're everywhere and you are everything. So it's like my ancestors died, but they're still present here with me because I'm here, and like future like generations are here with me already. So it's just that whole theme of like we kind of overflow into everything and nothing at the same time. So
Which a lot of people presume to be like a modern understanding of it, where this very nuanced understanding of we are the universe experiencing ourselves. That idea has been around forever. It's nothing new.
Yeah, people are like talking about that today, like it's like the new knowledge. Meanwhile,
it's like
this
yeah.
word has been preached for many generations already. All right, awesome. Well, thank you guys, thank you guys so much for coming on the show today. Where can the people find you? Where can the people find y'all's work? Let's get some Instagram plugs right now, some YouTube plugs, whatever you guys want. This is all you guys.
Do you want to go first?
Sure. You can follow me at @wayak_tzabkan. That's going to be for both Instagram and YouTube. It is the only one there. I promise you that. No one has that name other than me. So, Tlazokamati, I just want to use this one last time to really thank, I am very appreciative for Entre for hosting the show, Mira Trucha, the Laredo Film Society, Daphne Art Studio, C. Diaz, Andres Sanchez, and this radio show. I'm very appreciative for having
UTRGV Radio. Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming on with us.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, so for me on Instagram, I'm _Kunhe. If y'all don't know how to spell that, SINHA_KUNHE. And I do have a YouTube, but I don't have things posted right now, so I won't share it. But if you're on my Instagram, I'll probably post some film links there in the future. And same here, I just want to express my gratitude for having this space for us, for listening, and for, speaking about these themes. They're not very commonly heard here in the Valley. Again, thanks to everyone, everyone who made me be here, the UTRG Radio. Thanks for reaching out. And just like the land and the people, my ancestors. And it sounds cheesy, I'm sorry.
No, it's not cheesy.
I'm super grateful. So thank you.
Thank you guys for being on. We'll see you guys next week with Local Talk Radio.